Hey YouTube, this is Louisiana Woodsman. I'm going to be showing you guys how to use deer meat with no pork and no other additives, and it actually has the deer's own fat in it. I do not remove fat, I only remove connective tissue and ligament. So a lot of people have a lot of fear of leaving that white fat in there, and they think it might make their meat gamey. I will show you how the meat looks before and after I cook it, and I'll show you how it reacts in the pan and how good it can be. I strongly recommend to leave white fat in your meat if you process your own deer. All right, this is what our deer meat looks like. As you can see, there's still blood in the meat, and you can see all of that white fat still in that ground meat, which a lot of people would complain about, but I personally prefer it. I'm going to show you guys how it looks. That's the meat right there. See if we can get a close up of this. See all of that fat in there. And by the way, I did wash my hands before I started this. Always stay clean. All right, to start this recipe, which is really not much of a recipe because I do not have a rhyme or reason for my seasoning. I just like to season until I think it's going to taste good. So we have our meat. We have our stainless food grade bowl. I like using metal more than I do plastic for meats because you can better clean your dish after you're done. So I'll get that out the way. So this is it right there. We're going to go ahead and grab our seasonings. One thing I like to use, Kitchen Bouquet, minced garlic, bouillon dust, Worcestershire. I don't normally use this, but we're going to try it. Smoked paprika, garlic powder, black pepper, and salt. All right, first thing I like to do is just get this meat seasoned up, but before we dump dry seasoning, I like using my wet seasonings first. That was the Worcestershire, just a couple of swirls of that. There's no real measurement I use. Kitchen Bouquet, about that much if you can measure that. Start with the bouillon dust. This just adds a little bit more flavor. If you're doing a gravy, it doesn't let just regular water be in your gravy. It makes everything thick. So I just layered that on top is all I did. Just enough to get a good little even coating. Salt, we're going to start with roughly, that's a little over a teaspoon. That's about 2 teaspoons. Black pepper, I don't have much left in this, but we're just going to try to evenly coat all that meat. And when I say all that meat, this is not a whole lot of meat. This is only about a pound, pound and a half. Minced garlic. I'm going to put a spoonful of that in there. Garlic powder. We're not going to let any of that meat escape without some garlic. We're just going to do a little bit of that smoked paprika. About like that. And that should be all of our seasonings And what we're now going to do is we're just going to go ahead and mix it with our hands. I feel like that's the best way to mix. You can use spoons and forks and stuff, but that's just more dishes, and I don't like dishes. All right, the first step that we're going to do with that meat is we're going to brown it. I already sprayed some Pam in that pan, and we got to turn our heat onto somewheres around 3 or 4, and that should do it. Just give your pan some time to heat up. Be patient. It'll be plenty hot to brown that meat. All right, we got our pan nice and hot. We got our meat. Here she goes. I like to use a wood spoon in the nonstick pots. Don't scratch everything up. You want to constantly stir the meat. You want to keep raw meat touching the pan and remove the cooked meat. Stir it up to the top. Our goal is to get everything evenly cooked here. And with that deer fat mixed in with the deer meat, we should not experience a dry out, which is what does happen sometimes with regular deer meat and no fat. You experience the ground meat to get more and more dry, and then you have to doctor it up with whatever you have or other meat. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like. But I personally like the flavor of just deer meat with its own fat in it. And me and my wife both eat it, and all my family eats the deer meat with us that I harvest, and I don't get any complaints, and everyone loves it. Most people can't even tell that it's deer meat. All right, most of our deer meat is cooked through and through. We still have a little bit of raw in there, here and there, but what we want to do is now put our frozen vegetables, your seasoning blend, or if you want to chop your own onions, you can do that too. I'm lazy. I don't like chopping vegetables, so I buy them done already. I want to go ahead and get those to soften up on us. Let those flavors marry in there. You don't want an old crunchy onion when you're eating. So whatever you're gonna be doing, whether that be like a rice dressing, a gravy, anything like that. I'm not a fan at all of a crunchy onion. While the vegetables are softening up and the ground meat's finishing cooking, we're gonna go ahead and mix in some of this kitchen bouquet. It's gonna give us a little bit more color and make this meat a little bit more wet for when we add some cooked rice in here towards the end. I'm basically making a very cheap and lazy way of doing a rice dressing. It's good, it's simple, you don't have to have a lot of ingredients. So that gave me a little bit more color. Do a little bit more. A little dribble. And you'll see this meat change color. let that roll. While that's still cooking, we're gonna probably leave it for, I'd say, another 20 minutes or so, and check those onions out, see if they're soft. Until then, we don't want it to dry out, and we actually wouldn't mind it pressurizing a little bit to further help tenderize the meat and the onions. So we're gonna put a lid on it. All right, and our rice that we're gonna be putting in there, Cajun Country, 100% Louisiana, long grain. I don't really use a measuring cup. I just use just a little plastic cup you have around in your cabinets. So as you can see, I filled it up to about right there. That's gonna go in, and then I match that amount of rice with water plus some, just a little bit. So when I had rice in there, there's a little bit less, a little bit, probably about down to where that faded line is. And that usually comes out about right. Mix it up. Lid, turn it on. We'll see. All right, guys, that rice is done. Time to mix everything together. That's looking right. That's looking just right. Now let's see what we're going to come up with when I add rice. This is a good, easy, cheap way to feed a lot of people or make multiple meals out of. And it ain't all that bad for you because it's all natural meat. And you know exactly where it came from. All right, let's get to mixing. Let's give it a little taste test, see if we need some seasoning. That's what that looks like. Just kind of a traditional dirty rice or rice dressing. Man, that's good just like it is. All right, everybody, that's my recipe. That's like I said, I just kind of go with the flow. I add what seasons I think is going to taste good. You can try my recipe and see if you like it. Just kind of guesstimate on the measurements, and you can play with the recipe. It doesn't has no rules. You can add whatever you want, but that's what it looks like with deer meat with the fat added, and it tastes really good. I wish y'all could smell this. Y'all have a good day.